at a time. I'm sure they'll want to come up against each other in some of these stages. And if Suns can continue this really impressive run thus far, he'll certainly be in that qualifier, or in that quarterfinal. There's definitely a chance for him to match up against Anon. You can see these edits so clean.
That's as flawless as we've seen.
Yeah.
Just a slight slowdown, but no scuffs on the edits. Moving through that about as well as you could.
Yeah, to get down to this elevator bit at around 121 seconds, like that's really impressive. And so as long as he doesn't have any mishaps here, like this could be one of the best runs we've seen today.
Now we have to see if that second to last target gives him any problems. And he is moving through this right now.
Absolutely mowing down these targets. You can see the reload will come in, braces himself, lines it up, connects, and the final one is all just to make sure it's in there. And you can see onto the sliding rails in very, very good time. We'll jump onto the bottom one and move in 2 minutes as well.
Wow.
Absolutely spectacular from Suns. Both the Australian players starting off the day hot.
Talk about having your best run on the big stage.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a player that was telling us, you know, I'm just above 2 minutes, 2:02, 2:04 or so. And talk about, dude, how do you do that in the moment? Nerves could be a problem, but it looks like it gave him a slight little buff.
Yeah, look, of all the players we've seen so far, none of them, except for Suns, had runs that were what you would say their best runs, you know, from the practice rounds we saw. Whereas Suns, that might have actually just been his best run. So really impressive stuff there from him. That's definitely going to put him in contention now to make it through to that quarter-finals. But here we have Alexander Fejut, Bolts competing. Bolts was someone who, when I watched him in some of the practice runs, he was really locked in, really focused. You can see here just how quickly his fingers are going to be moving through as he's getting all these builds down. Very clean stuff as well. Look at the movement here. Wonderful from Bolts. And one thing I found interesting about Bolts was he was one of the few players that actually chose not to ADS in this section, right? We're seeing a lot of these players scoping in, using that red dot, but he's actually decided for some of it, he's just going to do it hip fire, not look to aim down sight.
And this is one of the things I was looking for. You said ADS, aim down sight, for anyone that may not be familiar. And I like to see the differences about how these players attack this course. We see Zagu was able to go for multiple targets at once. Now Bolt's trying to play a little differently by not aiming down those sights and getting a little quick here as we go through this edit course.
Yeah, really nicely done. We might be in for another really fast time, right? He's coming into the elevator bit. 1 minute, 22 seconds isn't too bad. And so we'll see whether or not you can keep it up. A bit of moment. This elevator is great, right? Because it almost just gives you a moment to breathe as you brace yourself for the long distance aiming. You can see here, he'll get off to the races with that. Very much snapping to each target again. Like you can see where he's practiced. He knows where every single one is going to show up. And he's ready and waiting for it.
A little bit of a hesitation there on that last one, making sure he hits it. Has to feel confident about this run. You know, you do have to get through to this final piece, and that's what I'm talking about. You can just slightly miss it to the side if you don't jump at the right moment. Great run nonetheless. I mean, 2:02, we'll call it 2:03. Bolts has got to be kicking himself just by missing that final jump.
Yeah, he will be, but still a really impressive run. And to think that, you know, he could be faster. If he didn't mess up that bit just at the end there, would have been slightly faster team, but very impressive from Bolts. And I think it'll probably be enough to make it through to the next round. I feel like it should be good. But once again, right into the next competitor.
And there is Rapid hitting that same 2 targets at once. I wonder if that was originally the plan, or if that was something he just saw Zagu able to do earlier on and then pick it up himself. Quick little adaptations. Not sure. Zagu, a player from the middle, or Rapid, a player from the Middle East, representing his region and doing very well so far. Hitting perfect targets, moving quickly, seeing a little different style of 90s. So we call those builds 90s because you're moving 90 degrees, getting elevation, using those ramps to get higher, and pretty standard style of build within Fortnite.
Yeah. Like you said, right? Rapid, the Middle Eastern player competing in this competition, actually from Kuwait. We'll see whether or not he's going to be able to have a time good enough to get him in. What I want to see today, Taylor, I want to see somebody get a sub 2 minutes. That's what I want. We've seen two players, it was both the Australians, getting 2 minutes on the dot. I want to see somebody get under 2 minutes. Will it be Rapid to do it? Moving through these edits really nicely. He was one of the players where in his practice times, he was looking really, really good. He actually had a sub 2 minute practice time. And so we'll see if he's able to do that here in this competition now on the big stage. But so far, this round's looking nice.
Yeah, he's about on pace where we saw Bolts, Anon, and Suns earlier. When you're hitting that elevator, that's what we're all kind of looking for, is that 20, 25, 125. If you're below that, you're looking at a good time. If you're above that, you got some work to do.
Yeah, the tough thing is that after that point, there's not much time for you to catch up, right? You see that missing one of the targets, ooh, that might be a bit of a time loss, a couple seconds there. And you're seeing now entering the rails at 2 minutes. We'll see when he's able to hop off of it. It's going to look like 2 minutes and 7 seconds, which isn't bad. It is not bad at all. Nicely done from Rapid. 2 minutes, 7 seconds, and definitely could have got faster. There was a couple moments there where just slight errors cost him. Nothing that he can't fix moving forward, and I think he probably will get a chance to move forward because 2 minutes 7 is better than what we saw from a couple of the other players.
Right, okay, so we've seen the first 6. The crowd have been hugely supportive when they've seen moves that they appreciated. Something you both pointed out before we started this round of qualifiers was that going first had a lot of pressure. Kiko, who went first so far, is the slowest time, around 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Any surprises there at all?
It's tough. It's tough, man. Because Kitos was one of the players who had really fast times in the practice, right? So, like, you know, being that first person, it's not easy. I'm sure he will be kicking himself because he will know he could have had a better time. And I'm sure he thinks, like, if I had gotten the chance to maybe go 6th, 7th, 8th, right, maybe my time would have been better. So much pressure on him in that moment, but it is what it is. That's the nature of competition.
And why do you think the two Australians, Anon and Suns, have managed to get the best times so far? It was around the 2 minute mark for both of them.
Just being comfortable. And we know all these players can hit about that 2 minute mark. It's being comfortable and not making mistakes. And ultimately, when it comes down to a game of Fortnite, the least mistakes you can make is what's going to win you games. And the same thing here within this skills challenge, to be able to perfect your performance. And now we have Tayson. I mean, Levin, what can we say about this, man?
We are watching the GOAT, the greatest Fortnite player of all time, steps up onto the stage. Will he be able to deliver us a time worthy of his status? Of course, it is a different game to what we are used to seeing him dominate in. I'm very sure Ty will be ready for the challenge. Not gonna lie, in some of the practice rounds, he was having some of the worst times. In fact, of all of the players in the practice rounds that I watched, he literally was one of the worst. Like, I think he was the second worst. Acorn was the only other person who was getting slower times than him. But in that time to now, he has been practicing. He let me know that he's been getting some faster times. He had some 2 minute times on the dot, right? So he has the ability to be really fast, but this is gonna really affect him, messing up the 90 there. Tayson losing a couple seconds. We'll see how much it costs him at the end.
And you were talking about Acorn, him and Tayson, that was the moment that was giving them most difficulty, was that building. But we'll see. Big time players show up in big time moments, and he still has some room to make up a little bit of time. Now, we don't need to be the fastest. It's still the top 8. You just need to be faster than the bottom 3.
Yeah, and so you've got to think at this point, right? The third slowest time we had was Rapids, right? 2 minutes 7 seconds. So as long as he can get a run faster than 2 minutes and 7 seconds, he will be safe. And that's what the goal is going to be. Of course, messing up early on can affect you, but as long as you're resilient, as long as you keep going, it's not all over. You can see entering the elevator section at 1 minute and 27 seconds. Not an ideal spot to be in. We'll see what that leaves him at come time to cross the finish line.
No room for mistakes now. If you want to beat that 207, you cannot make any mistakes on the long distance. And so far, so good. Hitting every target about as quick as they possibly pop up. Little reload. Now it's time for the the three that have given people the most trouble and given them trouble again, but going right through that target. And he looks poised to be able to beat that 207.
It might just be possible. It needs to make sure he hits this jump, messed it up a couple times in practice. Just over 207, 208 for Tayson. And so that is going to leave him at the mercy of some of his other competitors. Needs to hope that some of the other ones can slip up just a bit. Again, this is one of the best players in Fortnite history. But again, this is a different game in itself, right? This is a custom-made map just for this event. And so, unfortunately, not going to be Tayson's day in that regard. But again, it's not over. Still has other players left. And this is one of them, Acorn, Abdullah.
Interestingly enough about Acorn, he was one of the players at the start having the slowest time, but by the time that we saw them right before the competition started, he was feeling pretty confident moving forward, definitely decreased his average time, and that's what you like to see, the work put in.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how the 90s go, right? The building section where he has to build all the way up, because of all the players I watched, he was the one struggling with it the most. He actually made his own creative map just to practice doing these 90s himself. So we'll see if that practice comes into play. You can see they're just stumbling at the last bit, but a lot better than what we saw from him at times in practice. So looking really good right now, Acorn. And he's going to have to stay good if he wants to make it through to the next stage of the competition, to those quarterfinals.
But seeing him go into creative and make his own map, that's why he's one of the best players, if not the best player in North America. Put it in, that extra effort. It's all the little things he does that makes him one of the top players. And now just needs to move through this edit course without making any more mistakes, as he makes a little hesitation as we move through there. But still doing decently well here. Looking to put up a good time.
Yeah, not bad. Right now from Acorn, not the quickest we've seen so far by any means, but not over either. You can see entering that elevator stage at a similar time to what Tayson was at, so we might see very, very close runs between these guys. And of course, Acorn, one of the best players in America. So he's going to want to try to do well for the home fans. Everyone cheering him on. You can see here again, not necessarily snap into the targets as swiftly and quickly as what we saw from some of the other players, but just making sure he hits them. And you can see now going into the rail stage, this final stage. What time is he going to get? Needs to make sure no mishaps at the end. 2 minutes and 6 seconds. And that's going to secure his safety for now.
Oh, that might be just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough to get him through. And got to be feeling good, though. You watch a couple of players, you know that there's a couple behind you now. And as we get through the back half of these players, it gets even... Do you think it's more pressure or less pressure knowing what the time is?
I think as a player, you almost sort of got to forget that. You just have to think about your opponent and beating your opponent, focusing on that. But look who we have here on our screens. It's Winston, Wisa, the local player from Singapore. And of course, the home fans will be cheering him on, hoping he can do his best. And like I said, a bit of a wild card. Not someone who we're too familiar with, but nevertheless, this is his chance to show to the world what he's capable of.
We see a lot of these players competing regularly in the Fortnite Champion Series. Wisa's played a little differently, hasn't competed as much recently, and coming into this, trying to show that he still hasn't lost that step.
Yeah, a couple missteps at times, missing some shots, and the 90s aren't the fastest. You can see he's lost track of where he actually needs to go, turns around, eventually does find it, and will tack sprint in. But he's going to have to really start making up for time here if there's any hope.
Well, the aim for sure doesn't seem to be a problem here, nailing every single one of these targets.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, right? When you are a competitive player, a lot of the times, it's never really the aim that goes. Maybe, you know, your speed of your edits, your building isn't as crisp, but it seems to be the aim always stays intact. We'll see how he's looking on the edits as well. Just taking his time on some of them, doesn't want to mess up too many.
And it's interesting here, Levin, because some players decide to flip the ramp. so that they just run down it, and other players, like we see Wisa doing, just edit the ramp in half so they could walk freely on this left side. What do you think would be the better strategy of the two?
Flipping the ramp, for sure. Keeping that downwards momentum and just flowing through that, I think, is definitely going to be the best option. And so we'll see there from Wisa. Not the quickest of times we've seen today. We'll see how he does in the long-distance aiming section. That's going to be the important part. Of course, you've got to finish that course. You've got to finish strong as well, and this is your chance to do it. See, just looking out for each and every one of these targets, figuring out where it is he needs to go. Missed that one there for a second, but eventually located it, and will connect nicely again. Like you said, the aim's been good from him. Ooh, just as soon as I say the aim's been nice, he misses a shot finally, but
that's the caster curse.
Will connect. Yeah, that last one can be a bit tough, figuring out just how to connect to that one, but onto the rails here as well. One of the only players we've seen actually not hop down onto the second rail, so not getting that time save there, and 2 minutes and 38 seconds will be the time for Wisa. Unfortunately, the slowest time we've seen today, but nevertheless, a worthy opponent, given they're all here on the stage. And
we have 2 more players left today. They're going after it, and Peppo is the only player using a controller today, and I'm interested to see how it plays out, but we have Peppo and then Mustache to finish it off. We talked about how it could be a little anxious to play last, I would say.
Well, yeah, definitely it could be anxious. One thing I'm thinking about, right, if you are some of the players who maybe are currently in the bottom 3, right, if you're Tayson's currently in the bottom 3, the 3rd slowest time, and so he's going to be hoping that Peppo can have a mishap, right, because currently it's Wisa at the bottom, Hito's second bottom, and Tayson is going to be waiting, hoping that someone gets a slower time than him. And if it's going to be anyone, it will have to be Peppo or Mustache. But Peppo is clean.
That was one of the cleanest.
Really clean. Look at the aim here from Peppo. We talked about whether or not controller was going to be an issue, but so far, it's not looking like it's much of a problem at all.
And I don't think it will be. It's going to be on that final stage where you have that long distance aim is where it really comes down to that difficulty of using the controller versus using a mouse to be able to aim. And we do see making good time. He is going to choose to flip those ramps there, and that little delay could cost you.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The ramp flipping is definitely like more efficient in terms of time, but when you mess it up, it can very much cost you. And it's almost a bit of a trade-off, right? It's like a lot more difficult to pull off mechanically, but it does save you time. But when you do mess it up, it costs you a bunch of time. And so you'll see here, coming into the elevator stage around 1 minute and 30 seconds, we'll see how he does in terms of long-distance aiming. That's going to be key, right? That's where we're also watching, hoping he can keep up the momentum. But let's see how he fares here. Again, with a controller, it's so much harder to aim in this section than if you're a mouse and keyboard player. Still doing a good job, but just not as quick, not as snappy as what we're seeing from some of the other players.
Still having success, though, being able to hit these shots and come down to this last one. See a couple of players choose to fire 2 rounds down range versus a little delay. I probably go the 2 just to make sure, and we see Peppo going to come in at about 2:13.5 right here, and that'll put him in our bottom 3.
And you can see the frustration on his face. Peppo, a top Fortnite player, one of the best controller players in the world of Fortnite, but not happy with that score. And understandably, he was getting some faster times in the practice runs. So unfortunately for Peppo, it looks like he will be going home, the 2nd slowest time of the day. But now for our final competitor, Mustache, one of my favorite Fortnite players, hailing from Latvia. What will Mustache be able to do? He was one of the few players that had sub 2-minute times in the practice rounds. We'll see if he can do that now on the stage when it matters the most. And getting through this first section very quickly in just 18 seconds, nicely done. And Mustache is one of those players where I don't expect to see him messing up too much. One of the best things about Mustache as a player, if you're not familiar with him, is his mechanical ability, his aiming, his building, his editing. This is the element of the game that he is most comfortable with, and we're seeing that here on our screens. Oh my goodness, that's a bit of a different tech there, using a bit of mantling there to save some time. Nicely done from Mustache.
Hey, that's why he's going last. He saw the strats. He's like, hey, this is what I want to do. And then does decide to go out differently.
It's interesting, right? Because in the practice run, I was sitting next to him, and he said to me, Levin, I got a strat that nobody's doing. And I was like, tell me. He was like, I ain't telling you. I'm just going to save it. And that's clearly what it was. We've not seen anybody do that. And that saved a bunch of time for him. The only thing I would say, and the only thing I'd question Taylor is, I don't think he needed to do it. Like, he's capable of getting a time much faster without it. And so now that he's used that strat, some of his competitors might start to use it against him when it comes down to the 1v1 section of the tournament. So we're going to see a very, very fast time from Mustache here, but maybe giving away some of his best tricks a bit too soon.
Yeah, could have pulled that out too early. Maybe wait for those semifinals, but you have to make it there first. So you might as well secure your spot. We do see Mustache, a little bit of a smile on his face. He's going down that elevator, feeling confident already. And this is a player that broke out in 2022, having a lot of success, not necessarily getting his championship for the FNCS, but nonetheless teaming up with Tayson, one of the players we saw earlier, and then claiming that FNCS championship, and now looking to claim it right here, and that is a beautiful time.
That is the third fastest time of the day. Mustache, beautifully done from him. Very impressive. One of the best Fortnite players we have in this competition, and showcasing that here with some of the skill. Third fastest time of the day, not bad, especially considering he was the last player. We talked about the nerves that come with that.
Dan, so let's just pause there because we are going to get official confirmation of the times. You did mention that Mustache, the last player, did get the third fastest. We'll get full confirmation to be able to show everyone in the building here at the Suntech Convention Center, as well as those watching us live. Wow. 11 players came through, the best in the world when it comes to Fortnite. What stood out for me from that qualifying time trial?
I think how comfortable the OCE players felt when we're watching them. Historically, haven't performed the best at these in-person events, but they said today, I'm showing everyone that we are capable of winning something like this.
Look, Taylor, you like to say things a lot nicer than I do a lot of the time. Look, historically, if you're not familiar with competitive Fortnite, historically, OCE is just not the top region. Let's say it like that, right? They are not a region that typically has players performing incredibly well at international competitions. So for us to come here today and for the two OCE boys to be dominating the way they are, super impressive, really, repping their region well right now. And they're making everybody at home proud. They look so comfortable, so in their element, and they had the best times as a result of it. Like, those two clearly going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Just to clarify, OCE region?
Oceanic.
Perfect. Okay, we got that. We're close to the Oceanic region. Just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. We are just waiting for confirmation, like I said, of those times to see who will make the cut to the quarterfinals. We'll be going down from 11 to 8, and the results are coming for you now. Here are the first 6 to qualify.
All right, so it looks like Rapid is going to be our 6th player. We have 2 more that will make it. Anon, Suns, Mustache, Bolts, Acorn, and Rapid are your top 6, though.
Really nicely done, right? We talked about it. The Australians, Anon and Suns, 1st and 2nd. But you can see here, 7th and 8th will go to Tayson and Zagu, both managing to slip their way in. Not having the times they would have been happy with, but it's enough to get them through. The tough thing for them, though, is that now Tayson and Zagu are up against Anon and Suns, right? In terms of the way the bracket's going to work out, I'm sure we'll look at that. So they, don't have it easy from now. They are, going up against 2 very, very fast competitors.
Well, and we saw a clear distinction. There was that 2 minutes, 2:02, and then there was 4 seconds difference between those top 4 and everybody else.
Yeah, really.
So Tayson, as Dan has named him, the GOAT of the Fortnite world, has made it. Huge, huge news. And then that fastest time, what do you think was key to it?
I think just practice, right? Like, from all the players I've spoken to, it's really been Suns and Anon who have been the ones who have been really practicing, like putting in that work. They're making sure they're in the practice rooms every day for multiple hours, like just making sure that they're in their element, very comfortable with the map, no surprises. And it's paying off there. They're 2 of the ones that practice more than anybody else, and they're the 2 players to the fastest times.
No shortcuts. We talk about one of the keys to having success at the Olympics. It is practicing your craft. These guys here have obviously practiced their craft to get to the next stage of these finals here for the shooting round in Fortnite. I wanted to talk about Moustache, the last player to come up, and he wowed both of you. You said that he used a different technique. I think you used the word mantling.
Yeah.
What did he do exactly?
So what we were seeing from some of the other players, I say some of the other players, all the other players were building up, right? They'd build up and they'd literally just build all the way up to the very top until they can complete that stage. Whereas Moustache, he didn't quite build up to the top. He built up just beneath the top. And then once he was there, in touch and distance of it, he used one of the mechanics in the game to jump up, mantle onto the finishing platform, which saved him a couple extra seconds there. And again, that's something that we weren't seeing anybody do.
We've got the road to the finals up on the screen. Who are your favourites to make it to the semi-finals? I'll come to you first, Taylor.
I think based on what we saw on Anon and Suns, they're the clear top two, and they were the ones, especially Anon. He was the one that really stood out to me during the practice, being able to regularly get 2 minutes or sub 2 minutes. Showed it again here on the big stage, not having those nervous reactions. Really impressive from him.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to seeing these matchups, right? Obviously, you know, it's all good and well doing, you know, a really fast time when it comes to the initial trials, but now you have to sort of just beat your opponent. They aren't going to be in the same map with each other, right? Both of the players competing against each other in each round are still going to just be in their own individual map, but we're comparing those times, right? It's like who can get the fastest time. So we might see a player finish the map in front of our eyes a bit quicker, right? But if they don't have a faster time than their opponent, it doesn't mean anything, right? You have to beat your opponent. And that in itself is a different kind of mental game, right?
Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot. I asked Taylor. He gave us two of the players that he feel will make that semi-finals. He said the two Australians, Anon and Suns. How about you? You don't have to give us all your four. You could maybe put two.
Look, I'll be honest. I think Taylor's right on the money there. I definitely think of the two Australians, the one I'm more looking at and more confident in is Anon. I think Anon's consistently been sort of just unreal. He's on the
screen right
he's
now.
On screen. He's happy.
Give us a little smile.
Yeah, he's happy hearing that. And then I'd say Moustache as well. Moustache is just unreal, so talented, so young as well, and to do what he's doing at his age, you know, he's like 16 or something. Like he's really young. And so I want to see him do incredibly well, and I think he will, right? Whipping out some tricks for us as well was really nice.
I wonder if he has more tricks up his sleeve. We mentioned it may be showing his hand a little too early, but is there going to be those extra tricks? We showed Zagu, one of the first players to hit those two targets at once, and now everyone got an opportunity to watch that. Are we going to now see other players all do that same thing?
So Moustache did do that mantling as you described it. Will the other players take that risk and try that too when there's so much on the line?
That's the one, right? That's where you're really wondering, because it will save you time if you pull it off, but if you haven't practiced it, I'm not taking that risk. Personally, I'm not taking that risk. I wouldn't advise any of the players to take that risk. A lot of them are capable of getting times fast enough to not have to take that risk. But who knows? If somebody does try it, I would respect it, because that takes a different kind of courage to do.
Yeah, it's a power move to be able to do that in the moment, switch up whatever you've been practicing. I'm with you. Just do what has been working. We all know they have good times. One of the interesting things to me here is we talked about it at the beginning. Normally there's 100 players. Normally you're surrounded by all your teammates, your opponents, and now you're sitting next to your opponent, going head-to-head on the big stage. This has got to be tough.
It's not easy. It is not easy at all. I think the big thing here, right, as we head into what will be our first quarterfinal soon, Zagu up against Anon. Like, if you're Zagu, you're thinking of all these players, of all these 8 players here competing in the rest of this competition, I was the slowest. I wasn't the person who did the best, and I'm now up against the guy that was the quickest and who's consistently shown he can be quick. It is not going to be easy if you're Zagu. You're almost just sort of hoping he makes a mistake. That's almost his only hope now in that sense, right? Just go as fast as I can and just pray he makes a mistake.
The mental side of things, of course, they're all on the same stage. They're going to try and be focused on their own game, but if they do see one of their opponents potentially celebrate getting to the finish line or do some kind of movement, how off-putting could that be?
Oh, I mean, it doesn't matter. If they're already celebrating, it literally doesn't matter what you do. So you have to focus on what's in front of you, because by the time you see the opponent celebrate, you've already lost.
Yeah, like in the case of these two, right, in Anon and Zagu, they're on the opposite sides of the stage from each other, right? I think Anon's on the left, Zagu's all the way on the right. So they might not have that close interaction. But let's say you are Zagu and you're trying to finish, you're in the final sort of stage, and you hear the crowd cheering. You're like, well, I've not done anything, so why are they cheering? You know, like you almost know mentally, oh no, he's finished. So again, you just have to stay locked in. You can't allow anything to affect you. Just get in your zone, focus on finishing the map. That's all you can do. That's all you can control.
You mentioned that one of our quarterfinalists is very young, around the 16-year-old mark, Mustashi. We spoke about the map 2 being designed by a 17-year-old Japanese boy. That in itself is just so incredible. I guess that shows what is so great about these esports, that young people are at the forefront of it.
Yeah, especially in Fortnite. Fortnite is a young person's game. I'm only 21, and in the Fortnite community, I'm considered old. Like they consider me a grandpa, right? So it's definitely a game for the young ones, and they dominate it. They're doing so well, like you said, not just actually in the game, playing the game, but creating maps, you know, just providing us with great opportunities to be entertained like this. It's so impressive.
If you're old, I don't want to get into what that makes me. So,
I won't get into that either.
But it is awesome, because the age to compete in Fortnite is 13. Compared to other games, it is much lower than what we've seen. And we've seen some superstars blossom early at that. Not necessarily always 13. You normally get a year or two competing under your belt, and that's when you start to see these players take off.
Right, so we have our first quarterfinalists on the stage, and it's Anon. Over to you two.
Anon versus Zagu, and from the beginning there, Anon did start a bit earlier than Zagu, so even if Anon finishes, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that he has got a faster time, right? We've got to keep track of the times at the top of their screens. Of course, the split screen will allow us to see where both of them are at. But right now, when I'm looking at Anon, I'm looking to see if he's going to be as flawless as he was during the time trial. Can he be as quick, as swift? Because he did get the fastest time then. If he can get the fastest time again now, Taylor, I just think it'd be almost just, you know, him saying, look, I'm not going to slow down anytime soon. Everyone better just, you know, fight for second and third place.
Well, there is a possibility that someone comes here today, and every single round that they play this map, they have a better time than the previous one. It's easier if you have a slower time to start, but Anon zooming right now, just making sure he's doing everything. Every time I say that, they mess up in edit.
It's fine though, because I think from what we've seen, like, of course you don't want to make too many mistakes, but messing up an edit here or there, like, it ultimately isn't going to cut you out too much time, especially with a lot of the other things that they're doing to save time at times. Obviously you can see Zagu now making it through the edit course section as well, and both of these players, you know, we're definitely looking clean in that regard. I'm very interested to see how these times look, though. I don't think Anon's run so far is as good as that first one. Not as clean in his execution, but should still be a good time. And even though Zagu started a bit later, it looks like he's even catching up potentially, right? So
going into that elevator, Anon had about a 2 to 3 second lead above Zagu. We'll have to see if he's able to catch up here and hit those shots, but it looks like Anon was able to do everything, and another beautiful time. Now we know that's what Zagu's playing for, is that pretty much just too flat, and it's looking like it's over.
He's already over the 2-minute mark, and so that's going to be another victory for Anon. Again, I didn't think that run was going to be as fast for him, but he was still able to get 2 minutes on the dot again. Really impressive stuff from Anon. Zagu there completing the map, but ultimately not as fast as Anon. Look, he's smiling, he's confident, he's happy, brushing off the shoulder as well. This is a boy in his element.
Embrace it. Hey, this is a moment that there's very few people ever get to experience here, and you love to see him just owning it. And not only that, but showing off the consistency of all of his abilities. Rarely making mistakes during these maps, and that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. If he puts out a 2-minute or 2:01 every single time, that's going to be really hard to beat.
It must be so intimidating, though, if you're one of the opponents, because you just got him back-to-back 2-minute times. back to back. Like in the case of Suns, who also was able to get a 2-minute time, that was like his best. That was like his PB, you know, his personal best. You know, he's going to be very fortunate to get a time like that again. He'll be thinking, but for Anon to do it back to back, wow, so impressive.
Now we have our next matchup here, Mustache and Rapid. Mustache is your boy. This is your guy.
Yeah.
We're expecting to see some good things out of him, and he was third fastest, so definitely think he has an advantage here just based on what we saw in the previous round.
Yeah, Rapid's definitely got his work cut out for him because Mustache is one of those players. He is, in my opinion, like the only one after Anon where I'd go, this guy is a guy that's probably not going to make too many mistakes. He's probably going to get a time very close to that 2-minute mark again. And so if you're Rapid, you have to be at your very, very best. Both players starting off nearly at the exact same time as well, so it's going to be a photo finish for sure. And we'll see who's able to progress through. You can see the sort of difference in the different targets these guys are looking to hit in this stage. Of course, it doesn't matter which ones you hit as long as you hit 10 in that first one, and then, of course, hit the 2 here.
One of the little things that could play a big difference is we see in that bottom left corner, there's this white bar that moves over. If you watch Mustache's screen, it just moved. That's your stamina. That's your ability to sprint. When you use that, is going to play a key factor as we get later in this tournament. It may not matter for that first round to be able to optimize when you're sprinting. Now, every single moment matters. You need to make sure that you're doing all the little things correctly.
Yeah, look at these guys. Both their aims so crisp. And it looks like Rapid is really starting to steam ahead here, looking really good on time. Just as good on time, if not better right now by a couple seconds. So as long as he doesn't mess up these edits, there's a good chance he could cause a bit of an upset here. Mustache not necessarily going as quick as he was in that first round, but he still has some time to make up for messing up some edits as well. I was talking about how this is a guy you don't expect to mess up anything, but right now, it's Rapid who looks like he might just be getting the best of him. Of course, it's not over yet. Both these players just a couple seconds apart.
Rapid has about a 2-second lead coming down from this elevator, and now, hey, as long as you do your job, you're moving on. You need to make sure that you hit your shots, and then it doesn't matter what the other player does. So we'll see if he's able to do that clean so far through the first targets.
Yeah, look, Rapid is a player who doesn't quite have as much experience playing on a stage like this as Mustache does, but he's not letting that show here at all. Did not have the best qualifying run, but is still locked in.
Oh!
No, he misses it. He misses, he walks past. What time's that going to leave him with? 2 minutes, but Mustache will finish again, missing the target with 2 minutes and 4 seconds. So it will be Rapid who moves on to the next round. Mustache was a very tough opponent to go up against, but it's the boy from Kuwait who's able to do it. Wow.
We were about to see a sub-2 minute.
Yeah.
If he didn't miss that jump, that would have been the first sub-2 minute.
That quite literally is the best run we've seen from anyone today, barring the final moment, right? Barring the end. But very impressive. He puts his hands up, he knows. He's like, oh my gosh, I could have had the best time of the day so far. It is fine. You have plenty more opportunities to showcase what you can do, my friend. A really nice run there to cause an upset.
And we talked about it. Do you get nervous seeing your opponent do better? If I just saw what Rapid put on right there, I'm now nervous. I know he could do a 158, 157 possibly.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We'll see how that develops. Of course, now we have Bolts versus Acorn, right? 2 players from North America going at each other. North America knocking each other out, unfortunately, at this point in the competition. But one of them is going to have to go through. I'm still in awe of the previous round we just saw because that was a 6th seed going up against the 3rd seed, and it was a 6th seed that came out on top. It just goes to show the upsets are possible, right? It doesn't matter the time you got in your time trial in that first qualifying round. It's all about what you do in your 1v1.
That's all that matters. Your time you could put up when you're put on the stage. And like you mentioned, in Fortnite, you play regional based, so North America is one region, and we see Bolts and Acorn now competing against one another. They've competed against one another during FNCSs. This is a whole different style of tournament. Now, Acorn, the caliber of player, as far as overall, historically, well above what we've seen from Bolts. But within this competition, Bolts has had much better times on a regular basis. So, you know, the veteran may not be the one that has the advantage.
Yeah, I think the thing that's really gotten me so far in this competition is just how fine the margins are. Like, there's only a couple seconds in it. You look at that last round, Mustache is out of the competition now, he only was off his time by like 3 seconds. And you think like 3 seconds is not a lot, but in this, with how fine the margins are, it is a world of difference. You have to be on it to every last millisecond.
That's like playing Fortnite, though. You make mistakes, you will get punished for it, and that's what we're seeing is every single step, every single movement, every single shot needs to be done perfectly. Otherwise, your opponent's going to be working to do better than you. Acorn, the prowess, one of the best players in North America, in my opinion. And we do see he is one of the players that put in the most work today. Has been traveling a lot, 4 different tournaments, played in Scotland, played in Sweden, played in Dallas over the past, like a month.
Yeah.
And traveling all over the world to play this game, now coming all the way to Singapore. He was the last player to show up here in Singapore. Do you think that plays a factor?
Yeah, man, he might be feeling a bit jet lagged. You know, he's thinking, oh my goodness, I've not had much time to practice, as much time as some of the other players, right? Because, again, some of these guys maybe haven't been going to some of those events, so they've been able to be at home, practice the map, whereas he, you know, has basically had to pass like 24 hours or so to really get any sort of practice. I think the big thing for him is that, you know, he can't afford to sort of like get in his own head. He wasn't actually confident he was even going to make it to this stage, I think, right? Like, I was sort of, you know, making jokes of him beforehand. I was like, man, you're going to be on the first flight back. And he was like, nah, Levin, don't say that. So he's going to be looking to try to prove me wrong, and he definitely has a chance to do so, but Bolts is a very tough opponent to go against again. Both of these guys, top North American players, they've been going up against each other in Fortnite consistently over the past couple seasons. And so now, the time to do it here at the Olympics.
See, pretty even right off the bat. Looks like Bolts may have one step on Acorn, but not going to be a huge difference in that first round. Both of these players able to get to this second challenge within the map relatively quickly, but now it is the piece where Acorn admittedly had the most trouble with practicing, and now starting to look like that practice has paid off.
Yeah, the 90s there, quite clean from him. Not too many mistakes, not really messing up at all. And I think on time, he's not doing too bad as well. Of course, Bolts is slightly ahead in terms of what we're seeing, but I think in terms of time, they're somewhat neck and neck in terms of where they are. We'll be able to judge it a bit better when it comes to the elevator section. But so far, not looking too bad, messing up there just at the end. We'll see how the edits go. Of course, you want to make sure you have a flawless run here. Bolts was one of the players who I really liked his editing, right? Such a talented player. And so he makes it look really easy, just sort of glides through, and as I say that,
every
a
time
door edit comes through. That's not ideal, but it won't slow him down. He will keep on moving. Again, it's just about continuing. Even if you do make a mistake, you can't allow it to phase you. And again, about a 1 second difference between them as we head into the final section of this map.
And the crazy thing is we've already now seen 2 players miss that final jump. Yeah. So even if you get through this flawlessly, you might want to think about just taking that last jump like it's a given. Now need to understand that it is a possibility, and not being able to hit that is going to be a problem. But both players moving through at about the same pace. Now it's going to be time. Who has the fastest speed off the rail?
Kind of close there. I'm always worried that someone's going to fall off. It's going to be 2 minutes and 5 seconds for Bolts, 2 minutes and 7 for Acorn. It will be Bolts that goes through, and a very tough but close competition between the two of them. And unfortunately, it will be Acorn that goes home. But still, a very decent time from him. 2 minutes and 7 isn't too bad. It was sort of what we were seeing him getting in some of the practice rounds consistently. But when you're up against Bolts, not much room for error. This guy will punish you.
Well, and one of the cool things, if you're at home right now, you can actually play this map. You can go in and see what your time is. And we've seen different players. The Japanese player was able to create this. And now you can even go home, see what your time is going to be, and then compare yourself to these Olympic players.
The big thing is, though, is that if you are at home, and you decide to play the map, which I do encourage you to do because it's an amazing map, just because you get a fast time, it's not the same as doing it out here on stage in front of the masses, in front of the people. There's a different level of pressure there, right? It's not the same as doing it in the comfort of your bedroom. I'm sure all of these guys at home in the comfort of their bedroom would be able to get a sub 2-minute time, but it's not that, right? You're on stage, you're in pressure situations, competing. A look here at the bracket though, so our first semi-final bracket confirmed, right? Anon and Rapid will be competing up against each other, and unfortunately, bit of a mistake here, but Bolts will be the one that goes through to semi-finals, not Acorn, and his opponent will be the winner of Suns versus Tayson.
Who you got? If you had to pick, you going Suns, you going Tayson? We know who had the fastest time and what we've seen, but big players show up in big moments, and that is Tayson.
Big players show up in big moments. That is true. It's interesting because Suns has a lot of respect for Tayson. Understandably, all Fortnite players do, right? When I was talking to him a couple days ago, he was like, oh my God, Tayson's going to be like the best. No, like it's Tayson. Of course he's going to do really well. But of course he's had some times that are faster than Tayson's, right? So he's sort of on par on that level. But I think it'll be a close one. You can see they're both sitting right next to each other. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close. If I had to choose...
There we go. I was going to say, you're dodging the question.
If I had to choose, I'm going with my boy Tayson. It's my guy, Tayson. I'm always going to rock with Tayson. If you know me, I'm always going to rock with Tayson. I'm always going to be backing him, but it's not going to be easy for him. Suns is very, very good. We saw Suns get a 2-minute time, one of the fastest times we've seen today. He's going to have to be at his best, Tayson, if he has any chance of doing it.
Definitely, definitely. Hey, for the fun of it, I'll go with Suns. It's also the easier pick based on what we see.
Yeah,
so, you know, I'm really taking a tough pick.
It's very rare in Fortnite that you will see Tayson be the underdog. and this is one of the rare cases where Tayson is the underdog in this situation because what Suns has shown us has been so impressive. That first run, nearly flawless. And I don't even think he was expecting it, to be fair. He almost looked a bit surprised when he got his time. But nevertheless, locked in, he can see he's focused, thinking. Maybe he's going to whip out some secret strats for us, right? We still yet to see anyone do anything special in these quarterfinal stages. I don't know if anybody has anything, but
I don't think we'll see anything.
If there was a time to show it, it would be now.
And for Suns, he is the more experienced of his duo, and he was hyping up Anon, saying, okay, this guy's been crushing it. He's been the better of the two of us, but coming out in those time trials in that first round, showing their neck and neck, and now out of everybody, Suns and Anon, they're the only back-to-back winners. So they've won the last two FNCSs for their region. A little bit of confidence. That does start to kick in. Whether or not it's against the players you're competing here against, I think does help you just because having those experiences, having that caliber under your belt, knowing that you can win tournaments is huge. And I think we've seen that come out early from the Australians.
Yeah, it's something that I wasn't expecting coming into the competition, right? Because again, typically in competitive Fortnite at the top level, where there's international competition, it's very rarely the Australians who come through and dominate competitions. But to see the Australian boys here doing so well, I think they'll be incredibly proud. I'm sure everybody, from their region at home will be incredibly proud, and hopefully they can keep it going, keep it rolling. Of course, I am backing Ty. I'm going to back Ty. I'm always going to back Ty, but it's definitely not going to be easy for him. Suns is such an impressive player.
Yeah, you're from the EU, so you back your EU players. I'm a big NA fan, so it looks like we're going with Bolts for the rest of this ride. But nonetheless, just interested to see who the rest of these players and how they finish. I just want to see some good competition here, and thus far, that's what we've seen.
Yeah, it's definitely been great competition from these guys. A lot more intense than I was expecting, right? Because we're seeing just how close it is between these guys. I think the big thing here, going into this now, there's been a bit of a wait, right, for these guys compared to some of the other rounds we've seen, right? All of the other rounds are quite snappy, or sort of back to back to back. We're just going in. For these two, they've had to sit here for a bit of time now, right? They've had to wait longer than anybody else to get through this first quarterfinal. So, at a certain point, you almost start getting in your own head, right? You see Suns that he's sort of tapping his hands.
He's looking over. He sees Tayson over there. He's like, I know who that guy is.
Yeah. It's not easy when you've been waiting for a while. You can see your hands maybe getting a bit sweaty. You're trying to keep them dry. Nerve-wracking situation to be in.
I would think so. But we also thought that right off the bat, and then he come out show us doesn't really matter what we've all said, what the hype is, who we think is going to be the best. And Suns came in proving himself very early on. Tayson now has to put up a performance if we see the same thing from Suns. Has 5 seconds or so to make up based on the qualifying times.
And in this time we have before we get into it, I do want to say a big commiserations to all the players who along the way have been knocked out of the competition. A lot of them top players in their own right, so be sure to go and check them out and follow them, you know, on their socials and follow their journeys within the Fortnite space. But on to the players who are actually here competing right now. It's Tayson up against Suns. We're off to the races. Who's it going to be that comes out on top? Who will have the fastest time? Taylor, you're back in Suns, I'm back in Tayson. And right now it's neck and neck.
They're literally doing the same exact thing. You can't get any closer than this right off the bat. Both these players mirroring one another. You might not be able to tell if you're watching a different screen based on what's going on here. And looks like Tayson does have a half-second lead, at least in appearance. And maybe this is the time where he starts to shine, showing slightly slower time in those qualifiers just to make people feel comfortable.
Yeah, well, look, in the qualifiers, right, he had a tough time during the 90 section, right? When he was building up, he messed up a couple times, and that time round, nearly flawless. Not as quick and speedy as some of the other players, but just making sure there were no mistakes. And I think sometimes that's more important, right? Sometimes you'll see players trying to be as fast as possible, making it look flashy, but it can almost be better to almost slow down just a tiny bit, you know, just almost by 0.5%, just slow down just a tiny bit and get it done and be a bit more successful that way. And I think we're seeing here Suns just sort of falling behind by a couple seconds potentially.
Well, and that fluidity you mentioned is definitely important. The mistakes that come, not only do they slow you down, but I think they also get into these players' heads, because now you know, oh, I need to make up for it somewhere, knowing that the other player has done the same thing. They're playing back and forth, neck and neck, and if you make a mistake, now you just have to hope the other player does as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing, right, is that as they were going down the elevator, I saw Suns almost sort of take a peek at Tayson's monitor, right, to see, look, where's he at in the course right now? Has he made any mistakes? And so I'm sure seeing him also on the elevator almost gave him a bit of calm. Like, okay, look, I'm still in this race, even though I've made some mistakes. It's not time to give up just yet.
And that second to last target, giving people problems once again. Now it does look like Tayson hesitated just a bit there. He hit the target, but wasn't sure. Now coming down neck and neck, looked like a 206 flat from Suns. And Tayson just slightly behind that. Less than 3 seconds.
Really impressively done by Suns there. At a certain point in that race, he was behind on time. When they got to the elevator section, he was about 1 or 2 seconds behind, and a couple mistakes from Tayson just allowed him to catch up, right? Again, it just goes to show, Taylor, if you do make a mistake, you do not give up. You keep going, because there's always a chance your opponent can make a bigger one. And in this case, Suns staying true and staying in the competition.
Showing the consistency that we've seen. Not the best time out of him, but still enough to be able to move on. And you got to feel good. We now have the duo. The Australian duo is 2 out of the last 4.
That is very... If we get an all-Australian final right now, that would be absolutely mental. But I'm all for it. I'm here for it. That's what it's all about, the things we don't expect to see. Again, though, we're going to have to say goodbye to Tayson. Look, top Fortnite player. We talk about him all the time and how impressive he is. Hasn't quite been able to show us why he's considered the GOAT maybe in this competition. But still, to get to this stage where he wasn't one of the more confident players coming into it, right? And I think he's done a great job to be as competitive as he has done.
And for these players, what we judge them on is their FNCS championships. The winningest player in Europe, you're looking at them right now. 5 of them. 5 FNCS or Fortnite Champion Series championships. And that's why he's considered by 11 to be the GOAT. You know, I think there's somebody else that deserves to be in that conversation by the name of Booga. But, you know, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's not relevant now. Let's focus on who we have here. Of course, this is Tayson's teammate, Mustache, in this competition here. And it looks like he's suiting up again. We have a redo potentially here? What's going on? I'm trying to figure out myself. Look, the one thing I will say, right, is that if you are some of the players who have gone out, you can still sort of have that opportunity to be like, look, I was here a part of this event. Such a historic event. something we've never seen before, right? And so to just be able to say, look, I competed in this, even if you didn't quite get the time, you didn't quite make it through to where you wanted to get to, still so impressive to be able to say you competed in.
Yeah, soak it in. Just enjoy every moment of this, and whether or not it's a great experience in the game, nonetheless, it can be a great experience just being here, enjoying time with your competitors, with the fans, and there's a lot of other players here that are going back and forth, and you get to talk to them, see what they're about.
And just enjoying Singapore, right? You get to, none of these guys, apart from Wisa, are from Singapore. So for a lot of these guys, in fact, for all of these guys, it's their first time here, getting to enjoy the city. I know a lot of them have been having some fun, right? So a really great opportunity for them that I'm sure they'll remember for the rest of their lives. But let's take a look at sort of the road to the finals and how these players are going to get there, how they have gotten to this stage here so far.
We're just waiting for final confirmation of who will be going through. So you can see your semi-finalists there that we just had. So Anon coming up against Mustache. That is the... So hold tight. Sorry, we believe there's an error on that. We'll get you the correct information in a second. But in terms of what we've seen so far, nail-biting stuff. Because especially with the head-to-head version there, we were all living it at the same time, especially if they managed to start at that exact same moment. Your eyes are going up and down, seeing who's making a mistake. Were there any shocks at all from what we saw?
I don't think shocks would be the word, but I think if you're a fan of Fortnite, you'd expect Tayson and Acorn to be the best of the best. I think we have the leisure of being able to watch these players practice. Just coming in, I would have expected those two to be the top of the top, but we got to watch the practice, see what the regular times are, and the Aussies are some of the best players we've seen, along with Bolts.
Yeah, I think the thing for me coming into this, right, where I looked at it and I sort of went, cool. Acorn and Tayson are definitely considered like the two best Fortnite players, right? You're looking at top Fortnite players, you look at those two first. But a large part of what makes them the best Fortnite players isn't something that's being tested here today, right? When it comes to a lot of their in-game IQ, their instincts in the Battle Royale mode, that doesn't come into play here. A lot of what we're seeing here is just raw mechanical ability, and as much as they're two of the best players, that isn't their strong suit, right? You wouldn't say Tayson's the best mechanical player of these players here, and that's a fair assessment. You probably argue his duo partner Mustache is better than him in that regard, right? And so it's a different type of competition for these guys, as great as they are, and I think we saw just sort of how difficult it was for them. Still putting up a good fight, right? Like,
oh, 100%.
There was a certain point during the practice where I actually did almost worry that they weren't going to make it through to the quarterfinals. I kid you not. Like, I was looking at both of them. I was like, guys, you guys need to step it up, because the times they were getting, I was like, there's no way these guys make it. But they both did. So big ups to them for that.
And we will have confirmation of those times very shortly. So here we can confirm who is progressing to the semi-finals. So apologies for the previous error. We've got it for you now. This is all correct and up to date. So Anon and Mustache making it through to the semi-finals. You saw them on the stage there. They are going to be our first semi-finalists. And then in the second semi-final, we have Bolts coming up against Suns. So there are your 4 semi-finalists. It looks very tasty indeed. Now, of course, time is such a huge thing. That's what gets them through to the next stage. But was there anything that stood out from you from those quarterfinals?
I think the consistency from Anon and Suns, just showing they're going to be able to put those 2 slightly above 2-minute marks on a regular basis. And right now, that man that was just on the screen, Anon, that is the man to beat, in my opinion.
Yeah, Anon has been on it. 2 back-to-back 2-minute times on the dot. And so Mustache is going to have to be at his very, very best if he wants to come out on top as the winner in this competition. And we're going to see both these players going at it. Both of the players who I was most impressed with coming into the competition after watching practice rounds. They've definitely performed as such in the actual competition. But will it be Anon, Lucas, Melissa to continue this great streak he's been on? We've certainly got to think he'll do it. There's no reason why he wouldn't. He's just been so on it. Everything has been so crisp, so perfect. Taylor.
Just showing that once again today, but both these players are so crisp, moving quickly, and that's what we see once again. Getting that little advantage from Mustache using the mantle mechanic. And now it is going to be a nice little aim duel. It's going to come down to these final moments.
Yeah, and I think that little mantle strat he's using just put him about half a second ahead. But missing some of the targets means that he almost loses that advantage.
Going too early, Levin.
Yeah, he went a bit too early. And it's not often we see that happen, but it's almost like he's just used to completing it. And so it's like, it's almost the instinct to just run off into the next stage. But unfortunately that will cost him a second or two. We'll see if that comes back to bite him by the end.
And again, neck and neck, we're looking at where they are once they get onto the platform there, and I can't tell a difference. It looked like it was 121 basically both ways.
I think Anon is like slightly ahead of him just by like, again, like we're talking about milliseconds here. We'll see though who actually is able to complete it. As long as nobody has any mishaps here towards the end, which we know are definitely possible. We've seen people fall off, we've seen people missing that final finish line and just sort of running past it. But it's going to be Anon who makes it through to the final stage on our screens first, and he's going to run through, jump down onto that second rail, and as he makes his way on up, it's going to be a sub 2 minute. Oh my goodness, and a sub 2 minute for Mustache as well. The best 2 times we have seen today, but unfortunately for Mustache, even though he's put on an absolute masterclass with his run, it's not going to be enough to beat Anon, who is absolutely unstoppable right now.
You have to be gutted if you're Mustache. You just put up the best performance of the day besides what we just saw Anon do, and that might be the best performance we see. That was 156 and change. Oh my goodness.
I didn't even know you could get so fast of a time. Absolutely ridiculous from these two, and it's a shame. You could argue that was good enough to be the finals with how good those guys are and how quick their times are. I don't know if there's anybody who will be able to match up with Anon as good as Mustache was able to there. But if anything, it just goes to show how good Anon has been.
Big moments produce big results, and I believe Chad is with our first finalist, Anon.
He's cool, isn't he? He's doing a great job. 2 minute flat, now a 56, dipping under that 2 minute mark. What is it about this map you love so much?
I love the aiming and the editing. I'm really fast at it and consistent, so yeah.
Mustache threw a 159 on the table. He kept you honest.
159, I'm not gonna lie, that's crazy. In the practice room, my best was 157. His was 156, so it was definitely the best competition in my opinion.
How hard is it to pull out those numbers? You can say, yeah, I can do it in practice, but to do it on the main stage with all these eyes here, that's a different story.
I'm pretty sure 156 is really good. I think so anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You tapped out. Can you go quicker?
I'm hoping so, but I'm not too sure.
And what do you reckon? All Aussie final, potentially?
I hope my boy Suns gets on here. First and second, OC on top.
All right, mate. Big chance of that happening. You got the crowd right behind you, mate. Good luck.
Thank you, thank you.
We might have to hold him to doing that floss again if he does manage to get
no.
that first spot. Come on now, onto the Olympic rings, it'd be something to celebrate.
I would prefer not to see him do a floss, but hey, if he wins, he can do whatever he wants.
Anon, I want to see the floss from you, bro. If you win the whole thing, I'm trying to see that floss again, 100%. If you don't do it, I'm going to be disappointed. I want that floss from you, my friend.
Great stuff. Okay, so we do have our first finalist in Anon. Coming up is the second semi-final. What could you tell us about these two? Of course, it's Bolts and Suns going head-to-head. North America versus Australia. What should we be looking out for from these two?
So these two were pretty much, from what I saw in practice, tied. They were looking about 202 on a regular basis, and that's, you know, 8-10 different tries. They were above and below, but 202 is about where they were. And now seeing Bolts, Suns coming right up head to head, I expected these two to do well, but I'm even exceeding my expectations.
Yeah, what Taylor's trying to say is that it's going to be way too close for us to call. Like, these guys are very evenly matched, very impressive competitors. Both of them have been two of the best we've seen so far. But it's going to be photo finish again. You'd like to think both of these guys making it through that first stage with ease.
Oh, we forgot a target.
No. Oh, dear. Bolts with a blunder here at the worst possible time.
That could be everything. Now we need to see Suns make a total mistake. That can't happen in moments like this. You can't be missing targets.
That is the easiest stage of the competition as well, right? That first stage is the one that nobody really struggles with, right? Hitting those first 10 targets. And unfortunately for Bolts, just messing it up there, and it might just be what costs him in this competition. Bolts looking to try and catch up, do his best here, hitting the targets.
It's not over yet, though. We could see them go, and now we're going to have to see whether or not they're able to do it. Now, the edit course comes through, and these two are moving. Bolts is trying to get himself to where he needs to be, and the edits, neither of them really making any mistakes. We've seen why they're semifinalists right now, and as I say that, I have to stop commenting whenever they're talking about these edit courses, because it seems, whether it be Levin or myself, it's just a curse. Never want that for the players, and we see now coming down to the final moments here, this long-range battle is what it all comes down to. Both players at the final stage. The targets getting knocked down. Flawless here on this right side. And now just need, this looks like a slightly above 2 minute, like a 2:02. Oh, but he misses!
It won't cost him though, it won't cost him. He will complete the map in good time. And Suns will finish it there as well, but not as quickly.
So we said it there. There was actually, the players were on different screens than what we were expecting. So Bolts was the player that jumped ahead and now able to take the advantage. It's Bolts versus Anon in the finals.
So just to clarify there, apologies, there was a mix-up with the screens. The screen that you saw get the fastest time of around 2:04 was indeed Bolts, the North American, and the slower time of around 2:11 was from Suns, the Australian. So to be clear, it is Bolts who is advancing to the final, and I believe Chad is on the stage with him now.
I am indeed. Now let's see how he's feeling heading into this big final. I saw a nice big grin and a little punch in the air. Happy with that performance?
I'm not too happy. I think I keep missing the target in the end, the timer, but I can definitely work on that. I'm going against Anon. He's obviously pretty good. I think it'll be a close one, though.
Does this map suit your style?
Definitely. I think I have really good mechanics, so I think I have what it takes.
Now, 156 in that last semi-final. What's it going to take to beat that?
I honestly think I just need to be a little faster, have better attack sprint, and just not miss an edit.
How much are you enjoying playing Fortnite on the main stage here? I know it's very different to what you guys are used to doing, so how have you adapted to that?
It's a little nerve-wracking, but it's cool.
Should we get this crowd making some noise for you? What do you reckon?
I think we should.
All right, come on, Singapore, let's get behind him. We're not far away from crowning our champion, third place, and then we'll get into the final.
Thanks very much, Chad. So there you heard from Bolts. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to try and challenge Anon's times today. Of course, Anon got the fastest we've seen so far, around 1 minute 56. Bolts booked his spot in the final with a 2:04 finish. And you may have just heard there will be a third place playoff. So still something to play for when it comes to Mustache and the Suns. Who do you think's got the edge going into that third place playoff?
I think what we saw from Mustache that last round would have beaten any time that we've seen besides the one that he got put up against. So I have to give him the advantage.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Mustache in that sense, right? Because in a way, it's like he's not going to come second place now, but he will have the second fastest time on the day. But like that's just how competition goes sometimes when you have a bracket like this. So he was the second fastest on the day, but probably won't be coming second place, or definitely won't be coming second place. Look, I think he'll probably beat Suns from what we've seen from him. And I think knowing Mustache, he's going to almost want that bit of revenge, right? Like it's going to be personal for him because he'll feel like he should have went through. But both of these guys have been so impressive. It's a shame we didn't get to see Suns in the final, right? You know, an all-Australian final would have been nice to see for sure, especially with those two being teammates, right? Getting to see them fight against each other would have been a fun battle for sure. But in any case, we still get a very entertaining third place match because Mustache versus Suns, this is like good enough to be a final in that sense, right?
It definitely is. A podium place is on the line in the ignore, if I can even speak, in the first ever Olympic Esports Week. Right, so there you go. This is our third place matchup. You've got Mustache and Suns going head to head. There was an error there when it came to Suns' game just then. He missed a target. So crucial. What do you think that was down to? Nerves or just didn't see it?
I think he probably just thought that he hit the target, or these players are counting. I know it shows in the top left corner of how many of the 10 that you've hit. He must have just miscounted in his head and been like, all right, well, he definitely was like, all right, I'm good enough to move to this next round. Clearly not. Had to go back, and that was a huge disadvantage. Still actually had a decent time on that map. So there was a really good chance if he didn't make that mistake, he's playing in the finals.
Yeah, the big thing with a lot of these guys is that they've been practicing non-stop, and you almost get into like a rhythm, right? And so, especially with that first stage is like the easiest stage of the whole map. So for a lot of them, like it's almost like you get into like a flow state where you're just like, okay, I do this. It's very automatic. And I think in that moment, it's like he wasn't even thinking about it, right? Like he's not actively thinking about how many targets have I hit. He's just going through the motions of what he has done so many different times. And unfortunately, because he did miss one, it costs him, right? So I don't expect to see that happen again. I'm sure he'll be very alert to it now after going through some problems with it. But very unfortunate stuff, because you almost wonder like what could have been if he didn't mess that up.
Yeah, you're always going to have that now in the back of your mind, but he gets to go back, compete again, and one of the things mentioned by Bolts during that interview is this is a very different experience. Most of the competitions for Fortnite happen online with one large event towards the end of the year, and these players get to play at home on their own setups. And, I mean, I don't know, they may be playing in front of somebody, but likely they're in a room by themselves. This is a whole different experience, and we can see it's already starting to play a factor for some, and clearly not even a thought for others.
Who are you taking? Mustache or Suns? Who's it going to be?
It would be smart to pick Mustache, but I feel like Suns now has something to play for in his mind where he's like, I need to do this. I should be in the finals. I made a mistake. I have to get at least third.
And just for clarity here for everyone watching and tuning in, the third place will be a single match. Then we'll move on to the final, which will be the best of 3. But this third place playoff is a single match. So they've got through the stages to get here, qualifiers, semi-finals, and now this third place playoff. They are pretty familiar with the map.
Oh, they are about as familiar as you're going to get. Like Levin just mentioned, they've been playing this thing all day. And that may honestly be a detriment to them not having time, and they're just, like you mentioned, just going through the motions without thinking about hitting each target. And whew, that could play a big factor.
Yeah, I wanted to almost talk about like fatigue, but the big thing with these guys is that being top competitive Fortnite players, they are used to playing long hours in competitions, right? So I don't necessarily think fatigue will set in, but like we're sort of alluding to, almost that sense of complacency in certain aspects of the map, right? You get it down to almost muscle memory, but unfortunately, sometimes your muscle memory can fail you, right? And so if you want to be on that podium, you have to make sure you put your all in now. It's Mustache versus Suns up for third place. And we will be seeing which one of those players will get a spot on that podium. Both players, again, are going to be very vigilant of how they start this, making sure they hit all 10 out of 10 targets.
And one of the things we've seen throughout the day is just how little room for error there is between these players when they're going head-to-head. It's quite a difficult perspective if you're thinking about you really only get one minute mistake, and you might not even get one if you're playing a player like Mustache or Anon in that previous round. So you really need to be able to figure out how to put yourself in these best positions, and whether or not you figured out the little secret strats when it comes down to playing this map.
Yeah, you can see just moving quickly through this section, right? It's a scenario that both players will be very used to, a very common practice scenario just to get your aim warmed up. And same to be said here about the edits. You can see just how swiftly both of them will move through this. Different style in editing slightly, right, in terms of just the way they choose to edit certain things. But still, the efficiency's there. Both just gliding through effortlessly, no mistakes. That's what you like to see.
Yeah, no sideways movement, no slowing down. These guys just moving straight through those edits as easily as they can. Not as easily as everyone can, because that's why they're the top players in the world. And now we're going to come down to this final stage. Although I say this, and that final jump has become a stage in itself.
Yeah, you can mess it up at that final jump, right? It's the final hurdle you have to cross. We're going to see both of those guys move to that hurdle very swiftly. Look at Mustache. This might be another sub-2 from Mustache. Absolutely unreal from this guy.
Locked in.
It is going to be another sub-2 minute from Mustache. And as good as Suns have been on the day, he will not be able to get a time below 2 minutes. Oh man, the fact that we aren't going to see Mustache in the final almost hurts me, because this guy is absolutely unreal.
And he knows it too. He knows that just going up against anybody else, and that's gotta be tough. Nonetheless, still beautiful performances.
And it's always painful for Suns as well, because in most cases, Suns probably beats anybody else who he's up against for the 3rd place spot. But against Mustache, someone who's well good enough to win the whole thing, it is very, very tough. He is going to lose out there on a top 3 spot, but it is going to be Mustache that gets 3rd place.
And I believe we can hear from Mustache now. Chad is with him on stage.
You bet. Nice work. Again, going sub 2 minutes. Your thoughts taking 3rd place away from Singapore?
I mean, I can't be sad about that, but I'm also not happy because I wanted to win so much, but it is what it is.
We've talked earlier about how different this mode is. Time trial mode, now one-on-one. Do you like playing this version of Fortnite like this in competition?
I mean, it's something new, so it's interesting, but I don't like it really because, like, you can make one small mistake and it's, like, over.
How have you found the experience traveling to Singapore and showing people a sport and a game that you love?
Yeah, I mean, Singapore is a crazy country. I love it. I saw so much new, and I'm actually happy that I got invited for this tournament.
Well done. Congratulations on 3rd place. Singapore, put your hands together. Mustache, great job.
Yes, congratulations to Mustache. He, of course, did sub 2 minutes on 2 occasions. Incredible stuff there. He said he didn't like the game because you could make mistakes easily. That's what fine margins are when you compete at the top level, of course. This is the top level. It's the first ever Olympic Esports series, and these guys were 11 of the best in the world. Then we whittled them down to 8 before 4, and that's where he fell at that hurdle there. We're setting up for the final. You can see your 2 finalists on the screen. So Anon, the Aussie, famous for his floss. I'm not going to let that one go. He did it so well. And then, of course, representing North America is Bolts, who's on your screen right now too. What can you tell us about these two and when they've previously been in final stages of tournaments?
So for Bolts, he actually has experience winning an in-person event as a solo. So he won a DreamHack Atlanta event in 2002, which was a solo event in a LAN, in an in-person event. It's a little bit different of an experience because everyone brings their own computer and you're just playing in a sea of people in their PCs. But nonetheless, he has that dog in him that was able to win an event like that. So, I mean, I don't think he's afraid of this moment.
Yeah, I do want to correct you there, right? Not 2002, 2022, right? I don't know if he was born in 2002. You know, these guys are so young. I don't even know if he was born yet. But look, you know, you're right. He has experience winning in those kind of stages, right? So you've got to think he isn't going to allow that pressure to get to him, right? You'd think that. The big thing is, though, is that he's up against Anon, who has easily been the best on the day. All of his runs have been just flawless. It's like it shouldn't actually be possible how good he's been, right? We've seen people, you know, make mistakes who weren't making mistakes in practice. This guy was good in practice and even better on stage.
Yeah, all the players were standing watching him when he was going through his movements. And granted, they were all watching one another. One of the cool things before we do get into this final moment was getting to see these players interact with one another and helping each other instead of trying to like totally sandbag and show them, oh, I'm not giving you anything. Like genuinely giving each other advice, walking them through this, because before today, some players had more experience than others in this map, and very generous in their back and forth.
Yeah, some e-sportsmanship there for you, right? Look, I think the big thing, right, that I'm looking at is that if I'm Anon, yeah, I'm like, there's almost an even bigger pressure on him because he's been so perfect up to this point. Like, for him to be perfect the whole competition and then somehow mess up in the final section, in the final stage, in the final, would be devastating. So let's see whether or not Lucas Melissa can continue this incredible run he's been on, up against Alexander Feiju. Anon versus Bolts. A very, very big final, a best of 3 at that, right? So we will see who will pick it up over the course of this series. Not just going to be the best of ones that we've been seeing all throughout the competition. So, you know, a chance for redemption potentially.
It has to make you feel a little more comfortable. But when you know it's not just a single round, you can take risks in 1 or 2 rounds. Now, granted, first round, I'm just trying to put my best time on the board that I can. Then, if I have a time I'm happy with, round 2, I'm going to take a little more risk and try and push my limits of what I can do.
See here both the players again. Bolts going with his hip fire style, not deciding to aim down with the AR, whereas Anon will aim down, and you can see that red dot just trying to pinpoint every single target. Bolts will switch to aim down at some points, but mostly going just for the hip fire. And one thing I like about Bolts as well is the way he sort of does this little crab walk where he's like spamming his sprint button and then just cancelling it out with the crouch button as well to slide. So again, players just trying to maximize the mechanics in every single way possible, placing down that reverse ramp, and Anon will do it as well just to make sure they keep that forward momentum as they head towards the elevators.
And Bolts mentioned that, using that tactical sprinting ability to the best of its ability, and now both players coming down. It looks like a slight advantage going to Bolts to start this. We'll have to see if he's able to cleanly hit all these targets and then put himself in a position to take at least the first round. Again, we're playing 3.
We'll see here whether or not both these guys will be able to keep their cool in these final moments here, right? We don't really see players messing up too much on the long distance aim. Some of the final targets can be a bit difficult. It looks like it's going to be a photo finish. Both of these guys on the rails on the same time. What times will they get to close things out? Oh! No! Bolts just missing the final finish line. And so Anon will win by just 2 seconds. It was very, very close, but a tiny bit of a mistake in the final moment there just cost Bolts.
It's not the win yet, though.
Best of 3. Best of 3, right? And so there is still another chance for Bolts to respond. It's not over for him yet. Anon is not the winner. But one thing to point out about Anon SBG up to this point is that he's not lost at any point. Everybody else in this competition has lost to a point, right? Obviously, in the time trial, if you didn't get first, I'm saying you lost. You didn't lose, you still got 3. But Anon came first in the time trial, so he won that. And he's not lost since. Bolts obviously didn't do as good in the time trial, but did beat everybody else that was put in front of him, and now has to hope he can win this next round. Otherwise, it will be all over. It will be Anon taking it home.
It's got to be tough because all the other players made small mistakes, and Anon has yet to make one. We saw a little bit of a slowdown on that last round. Yeah. So, but that's one of the fastest rounds we've seen today. Besides him and Mustache, that is amazing. Nonetheless, Bolt's putting himself in a good position, just missing that final jump. And what? Come on, guys, that is one of the easier things that we could be doing today.
I know. You think that, right? But again, it's just these pressure situations. Look, that is just a mad thing to wrap your head around, guys. Look, we have seen so many different runs up to this point, right? About 20 different times we've seen this map be played now by these different competitors. And to think that that was Anon's slowest run today, yet was still faster than almost every single run we've seen from everybody else, it just goes to show you how impressive of a competitor he is. And so, look, even if Bolts isn't able to respond, there is no, real loss here for him in the sense of he's going up against someone who is at the very, very peak of their powers. But look, Bolts still does have a chance, and he will go at it. He was very, very close to being the first person to take Anon down. We'll see if he can do it here in this run. This is where it has to happen. It's all in this one for Bolts. Anon can afford for this one to slip, but he won't want it to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how I would want to play this if I'm both of them. If I'm Anon, obviously I'm just trying to do flawless rounds like I had in the past, because you know you can do better than the time you just put up. Now for Bolts, really has nothing to lose at this point. He's already behind, at least for our first round, and can just play as quickly as he possibly can. So, I mean, I guess I say all that. Both players are just trying to put up the best time possible. Now we move into this aiming. Really not much of a difference between all the competitors in this event, because all these players hit pretty much every shot out of the 50. If you miss one or two, that's going to be the difference.
Again, we talk about those fine margins. Both players now making their way into the editing section, and look how crisp this is. Oh my goodness, so clean and satisfying to watch these guys. Again, if you've never played Fortnite before, you might think, what on earth is going on here? What they're doing is very difficult. To do it with no mistakes like both of these guys have just done, you can see their fingers just rapidly moving so fast. It is not easy. So many different actions per minute, per second. But they make it work. Both these guys now going down this elevator, and these final moments here are so crucial. If Anon can win this round, he'll win the whole competition.
The physical ability, though, to push all those buttons, the finger dexterity to move around, and then have that knowledge in your head of what exactly you need to press is not something that should be taken for granted. Not many players, not many people can do what these players are doing, and we're seeing them push the limits. They're going head-to-head here once again. We might get two sub-2 moments, and no! Oh, not again by Bolts.
Once again, Bolts misses the final finish line. And so because of that, and because of another sub-2 run, Anon will be your winner. What an impressive performance it's been. The first ever Olympics Esports Series 2023 shooting winner is Anon.
We have to give a shout out though to Bolts. I mean, coming all the way to Singapore from the United States, showing up and putting on a show for us as well. Second place is definitely something I would be proud of, and he probably wants to win, but hey, still a wonderful performance.
Look, for Bolts, he has been so impressive. He's impressed me throughout this whole competition, and you can see he's not happy with how it ended up, and that just goes to show you the fire, the drive this kid has. So passionate about what he does. That's what you want to see from the top competitors. But looking at the winner, Lucas Melissa, Anon, so impressive on the day. I'm going to run out of words to describe how impressive he's been. An absolute top Fortnite player, and showcasing here just how skilled he is at all the fine little details of the game.
We going to see the floss?
Are we going to see the floss from Anon? That's the question. I want to see it. I definitely want to see it.
Okay, your wish may be true, because I believe Chad is with our winner.
I am indeed. I'll get Bolts over here in a minute as well. Pushed all the way, winning that final 2-0, coming in as the top qualifier off the back of the time trials as well. You've done it here in Singapore in front of this crowd. You could feel the tension building towards the end there, but you are the winner. Talk us through the emotions.
I was really nervous. I'm really happy, excited. Then yeah.
Talk us through those 2 runs in the final.
The 2 runs, they were not that great. I'm pretty sure Bolts fumbled under pressure, but I'm not too sure what happened, so...
He missed just both the final jumps.
Oh, really? Yeah. Damn. Well, them last 2 runs were my worst 2 out of the 5, so I guess I'm lucky.
All right, hang here for 1 second. I'll see if we can still get Bolts over here. I think he's maybe jumped back off stage for a minute. The guys at the caster's desk have been talking up the chance of potentially you doing a victory floss for us tonight in Singapore. I know Daniel in particular has been pushing for this. You can see him up there right now. Any chance we're going to see this happen today?
Only a little.
A little. All right, come on, Singapore. Who wants to see the victory floss with our boy right now? Here we go.
We absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Anon. Incredible stuff there. He might do it again when he holds that first place trophy. Why not?
Oh, you know? I'm so glad he did it. I'm so glad. Because you know what? Sometimes, yeah, people, they don't want to. I feel bad. We peer pressured him into doing it. But I'm glad he did, because Yeah, what a day it's been for him. A special moment I'm sure he'll never forget.
Who can say that they flossed under the Olympic rings? I mean, come on now. First winner here at the inaugural Olympic Esports series when it comes to shooting, playing Fortnite, and he's added that to his CV as well. Incredible stuff. Let's talk about the man that he faced in that final, Bolts. It was the jumps at the end that let him down.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, to get all the way to that final moment, and he looked like he was going to be able to take that second round had he not missed the final jump, but small margin.